Bonjour, hello, my name is Cyril. I used to be a stem cell researcher for many years, and this is why I can tell you about the science behind skincare ingredient. And for today's video, we are going to talk again about my favorite subject, which is sunscreen, obviously, and especially about a very hardcore sunscreen. So if you are not new to my channel, you may know what I classify as hardcore sunscreen. So basically what I tend to recommend on a day-to-day basis is to have two types of sunscreen in your arsenal. So the first one would be a more elegant sunscreen. It is still an SPF of 50+, but the texture is lovely. It doesn't have a white cast, it doesn't feel too oily. It could also be an excellent makeup base, and so on. So this is the first category. But when you know that you will be exposed to the sun, for example, for a long walk outside or during a weekend because you are going to visit a new place, or you will be at the beach and etc. In that case, I do advise you to have what I call a hardcore sunscreen. Most of the time, those hardcore sunscreen also goes with a lot of cons. So basically they are greasy, they can be very shiny, not pleasant to you. They are not the best one under makeup, but they offer an amazing protection, especially against UVA. So most of the time, especially if you are in Europe, every SPF 50+, because I do not recommend a sunscreen with an SPF below of SPF 50+, the highest the better. But in terms of UVA protection, you are guaranteed that in Europe, the minimum UVA protection will be of 20. It is also the same with Australian sunscreen. For Asian sunscreen, it is the PA rating, so the maximum is for pluses, and this corresponds to a UVA protection, so a PPD value of 16. So basically with all Japanese sunscreen of SPF 50+, you can just know that it is a UVA protection of 16, and you don't know if it is higher, even though it is a possibility. So of course, when you know that you will be exposed to the sun, it is always better to opt for a European sunscreen, and some brands disclose the UVA protection. Unfortunately, most of them do not, which I find very annoying. Anyway, so the sunscreen that I've already reviewed and that I classify into more hardcore is the Anthelios, the Ultra Cream. This one also is pretty good, and the texture is not too horrendous. This is a cream, so still it is quite moisturizing, but you can make it work, especially if you have a normal to dry skin. This one has a UVA protection of 35 or 36, I don't exactly remember. Another one that is also excellent, more moisturizing, a little bit more greasy, and it does have a pretty strong white cast, is also this one from La Roche Posay, the Anthelios Shaka. Another one where I don't know the UVA protection, but I also really enjoy it, is simply the Ultra Sun, the Phase 3. This one also, I have a video, a pretty old video actually, about this one. Another one, and tell me if you want me to review it, is this one from the Spanish brand Isdin. This is the Spot Prevent SPF 50+. So apparently this one has a mind-blowing UVA protection of 60, so super high. So I can make a review if you want to about this one. And of course, the one from today that I'm going to review is the famous Shaka Fluid. So I know it has been out for a couple of months now, and I probably should have done this review quite a long time ago, especially because I have tried it almost when it was launched, basically. So basically my message here is those type of sunscreen, the hardcore one, are really the one that you should rely on when you know that you will be exposed to a lot of sun, especially if you have fair skin. The only Japanese, or I should say Asian sunscreen that I do like to recommend, that I consider hardcore, even though I don't exactly have the UVA protection, is the Anessa, the Perfect UV Sunscreen. Simply because I have a lot of experience of this one. I've never experienced any darkening of my skin. Of course, no sunburn, but even I didn't notice any change in the melanin colors, which could argue that the UVA protection is quite good with this one. Of course, I don't know the exact value. So as always, the first thing that you need to check when you are buying a sunscreen is the SPF value, so SPF 50+, do not go below, and if you can, the UVA protection. Like I said, if it is an Australian or European brand, you don't really have to think about it. With this one, we are lucky because La Roche Posay, and I really love this about La Roche Posay, I don't like most of the most of the products, but I do really enjoy some of the sunscreen. And this one has a UV protection of 46, and they use the in vivo method, so most likely it is the PPD method, so the Japanese method. So an amazing UVA protection for sure. This is exactly what you want when you will be exposed to the sun, especially if you have a skin that is sensitive to the sun. This is the kind of protection that you need. And then once you are sure about the UV protection, so the SPF and the UVA, we can have a look at the filters. It is always interesting to have a look at the filters because first of all, it helps you to understand how the sunscreen, I would say, perform, because the SPF and the UV protection is partly due to the UV filters. And also it can help you to rule out a sunscreen if you are, for example, allergic to one of the filters, or you know that one filter can break you out, or you are simply sensitive to one of the filters. I'm lucky because with this one I am not sensitive to any of those UV filters. So you are going to see that this one has 6 UV filters. I really love this, with a lot of redundancy. This is also the same thing with the Ultra Cream. Check my video if you're interested with this one. This one also has 6 filters, so this is of course excellent. So the first filters is octisalate, also known as ethyl salicylate. This is a UVB absorbent. Then we have Uvinol T150, again a UVB absorbent. What is excellent with Uvinol T150 is that even at a low concentration it can help to achieve a super high SPF, so it's very convenient to formulate with it because basically you need less filters. Less filters also translate with a less greasy feeling, so an excellent thing. Then we have my beloved Thinners of S, which is an organic filter. It is a broad spectrum filter that filter UVB, UVA type 2 and also UVA type 1, an excellent one. Then we have avobenzone. Avobenzone is mainly a UVA type 1 and also a little bit of UVA type 2 UV absorbent. This is an excellent one. The problem with avobenzone is that it is not photostable, but there is a nice paper that I've shown that when avobenzone is combined with Thinners of S, it stabilizes the avobenzone. I mean, the Thinners of S stabilize the avobenzone. And the last two are the one that you are only going to find in the L'Oreal products because it has been patented by L'Oreal. So this is the Mexoryl XL, which is again a broad spectrum organic filter that filters UVB, UVA type 2 and also UVA type 1, so it complements perfectly the Thinners of S. And the last one is the Mexoryl SX, which is also an excellent UVA absorbent. So a lot of redundancy here. I really love this. 6 amazing filters with a lot of UVA protection, hence the beautiful UVA protection. So overall, pretty amazing. So now if you look at the other ingredients, so the formula that I have is the one without any fragrance. I actually also have the one with fragrance. It is quite perfumey, so it is quite strong. It also lingers on the skin for quite a long time. I strongly discourage you to choose the fragrance one. Also, when you have the choice between a fragrance formula and a one without any fragrance, always go with without the fragrance. I also personally really don't like this fragrance. So in terms of emollients in a sunscreen are pretty important because you need something to dilute the UV filter. So here it is a very elegant emollient that is also known to help to achieve higher SPF, which is the D-isopropyl sebacate. So this one is often used, I should say, in sunscreen because it helps to dissolve the UV filters and also achieve a higher SPF, which is obviously what you want. It is also not a greasy emollient, which is important because if you already choose a greasy emollient plus the greasy filters, you end up with a very greasy formula, which is not optimal. Another one that is also an elegant emollient is isopropyl myristate. This one also is quite emollient. So the characteristic of this one in terms of texture is that it is a milk. It is very fluid and watery, as you can see. In addition of the emollient, you also find 2 different types of mattifying powders. The first one is delicate, it's quite high in the formula, and they are small beads, spherical. I do think, but I am not sure of it, that the size of it is 20 micrometers, so very small, and it helps to mattify, and it also doesn't have any white cast, which is excellent because none of the filters have a white cast and this one is 100% transparent. Therefore, this one, even if you have super dark skin, you can use it and have an amazing sunscreen, which is a huge plus. And there's also another type of powder which is perlite, so I guess that the perlite that is used here is the nano size one, so the very small one that helps to mattify the skin, because the larger size of perlite can also be used as a scrub, which obviously this is not what you want with sunscreen. In addition of those two powders, there is also alcohol. So alcohol in the form of ethanol in sunscreen helps to solubilize the filters and also simply to lighten the texture, because you will need less emollient to dissolve the filters by using ethanol. And like that, you will have a sunscreen that is basically less greasy, which is a major issue, especially with those hardcore sunscreen. Most of them are very shiny, very greasy, and are not compatible for oily skin type for sure. So now in terms of texture, this is a milk texture. It is very, very runny, as you can see. It doesn't have any white cast. A problem with those texture is that even though they are very, very nice and pleasant to apply, this is definitely my favorite type of texture in terms of sunscreen. The problem with it is that a little bit can go a long way, which is not what you want. You want to pack on the sunscreen, so you need to be very careful with this one and apply several coats. With all those type of sunscreen that are very milky, very runny, I always encourage you to apply a first coat and then a second coat with, of course, the correct amount of sunscreen. So the correct amount of sunscreen, if you don't want to bother to measure your face and then weight your sunscreen, is 1/4 of a teaspoon for your face. So it corresponds to something like this. So it is quite a lot. On myself, I actually need 1 gram of filter, so it's a little bit less of 1/4 of a teaspoon. I have a pretty big face, so if you have a face basically smaller than mine, you may need less. The only way to tell is to measure the surface of your face. I do have a video about this to know exactly how much sunscreen do you need. I find it very convenient, and like this you can use a scale like this one to just measure exactly what you want. I like to do it quite often. It happened that because I've been using and testing sunscreen for such a long time, most of the time, especially with those type of filter of sunscreen, I always tend to use even more than the recommended amount, but this is something that you need to keep in mind. A good tip also is that if you wear contact lenses, you can just recycle them. You pour the sunscreen, you weight it, and then with a pen you just make a little mark, and like this you don't even have to weight the product, you just pour it until it reaches the mark and you are fine. This is also a good thing to do, but please do not under apply sunscreen. This is something that is very important, and with those type of texture, it is very important to do 2 coats. So basically what I do 1 coat with the correct amount. I wait for 5 to 10 minutes and then I apply a lighter coat on top. The whole idea is to make sure that you don't have a streaky application basically. So all of this is beautiful. This is also, like I have said, a formula without any perfume. You don't have also any, I would say, weird botanical extract. Therefore, if you tend to react to a lot of ingredients, this is not going to be the case with this one, unless you are allergic to one of the filters. Obviously, this one is also safe for around the eyes, and I have to say that I never experienced any stinging of the eyes. So beautiful, beautiful. The main downside with this one is probably the alcohol content, so I don't exactly know how much it contains. What I can tell you is that when you put it on your hand, you definitely smell the alcohol for sure. And also, if you're sensitive to alcohol, you will feel it on your skin. And this is the biggest downside of this one. On myself, every time I use it, I always end up with red skin and inflamed skin for at least 10 to 15 minutes. It all depends on the state of my skin. Which brings me to the next point, which is how can you manage to use a sunscreen like that. So I've been playing a lot with it. I have used a pretty thick moisturizer, pretty occlusive one, such as this one from Derma. This is the skincare cream nourishing, so this one is quite thick. It uses Perfidium liquidum, so mineral oil that is an occlusive. So I try to use it to prevent the alcohol to enter in contact. I'm pretty sure that this is the alcohol in this sunscreen that makes my skin react, simply because I am fine with all the filters. Still, every time I use it, my skin is red. The first time that I've tried it, I was still using 1% retinol. If you want to know about my my skincare routine, you can check my two previous video, and oh my god, with 1% retinol it was like a nightmare. My whole face was like red and inflamed. I think I did find a solution, which is probably not an optimal one for everyone, which is basically to use another sunscreen underneath, and a Japanese sunscreen. So the one that I've used, and I didn't experience any major reaction of my skin. This is the Anessa, the Perfect UV Sunscreen Skincare Gel. I also have a review on this one. The reasons why I've decided to use this one over another sunscreen is because those Japanese sunscreen forms a sort of protective veil on the skin. It is, if you have never tried them, it is pretty difficult to describe them, but you can really feel this sort of film on the skin that doesn't exactly feel like a silicone primer, that doesn't exactly feel like a greasy film. It is something different. I cannot exactly explain it to you, but it feels pretty soft, pretty smooth on the skin. It is pretty elegant, and I have to say that if I apply a thin layer of this one and then the correct amount, actually more, of the Shaka, this one did protect my skin and I didn't experience any bad reaction. I will keep you updated, most likely on Instagram, and you should definitely follow me on Instagram because I also talk a lot about sunscreen, skincare, and so on. So I was quite happy because this is the type of sunscreen that you want to make it work for you, especially when you will be exposed to the sun, because you are guaranteed with this one that the UV protection is super high, which is what you want. So in the future, what I'm going to do is also to use the Perfect Skincare Milk from Anessa, because this one also had like a really protective film that stays a very long time on the skin, so maybe it will be even better than this one. Still, keep in mind that the Shaka, because it has a high content of alcohol, it won't be suitable for you if you have super dry skin. If you have impaired skin barrier, definitely if you are using retinoids such as 1% retinol and you are still in the tolerance period. If you are using tretinoin, for example, unless your skin really tolerates super well the tretinoin, I do not recommend this sunscreen. Also, if you have a moderate to severe acne with a lot of open wounds, this is also not the one to consider. Last but not least, the finish of this sunscreen. So if you don't apply any moisturizer, I do think that it is pretty drying, so I do not recommend it. I do think that you need a moisturizer underneath, but still it can be really dehydrated. You can see it because when you apply it, you can see the small, really tiny fine lines that forms just after the application, simply because with the evaporation of the alcohol, it is also going to draw some of the water in. So what I encourage you to do with this one is to always moisturize a little bit more. Of course, you are going to tailor this to your skin type and also to where you live. If, for example, you go on vacation in a very humid place, most likely you will not need any moisturizer underneath, but still keep this in mind. It is also a good idea to use maybe a makeup primer or something like that form this protective veil if you are afraid of the effect of alcohol on the skin. So comment down below and tell me what you thought about this video. If you have any question regarding this sunscreen, I will definitely keep you updated, I think on Instagram, but maybe on YouTube, we will see. I am also wondering if I'm not going to review 3 sunscreen from Uriage. I have currently 2 at home. I have the spray version. I also have the cream, the very high protection, so this one. So tell me if you are interested to see a review about Uriage. Of course, I thank you for watching me. If you are new to my channel, please consider to subscribe to it and to ring the little bell to not miss any of my new videos. You can also follow me on Instagram. I am Cyril Laurent. Like I have said, a lot of things are happening on my Instagram, so definitely go and check it out. Again, thank you for being here, and I will see you next time. Au revoir.